A quick look there of who's fighting who on the ground in Syria. Let's speak now to Tafik Shama in Geneva, Secretary General and spokesperson for the UOSSM NGO that provides free medical aid to people on the ground in Syria, regardless of nationality, ethnicity, gender, or religion. Mr. Shama, thank you for speaking to France 24 today. I'd like to begin by asking you, what was your reaction about the U.S., UK, and France coordinating strikes against the Syrian regime?
Unfortunately, we keep having sad days in Syria. This is the second aerial attack to answer chemical weapons use. The first one and this one, I don't think they'll bring peace to Syria, unfortunately. Retaliation attacks by conventional arms are taking place right now and took place during the last night on Idlib, where most civilians who fled the conflict from Ghouta and other places in Syria are taking shelter. Unfortunately, we think that war, it's not the answer. It must be negotiations. It must be to go back to international Security Council resolutions, to go back to Geneva II decisions, to go back everybody, Russians, Iranians, Syrian government, and all other regional and international forces to go back and try to settle down this situation. War, it's not the answer, unfortunately.
But are those alternatives viable options? Because there's been impasse at the United Nations, at the Security Council, failure to produce a ceasefire, and the Western allies saying that they're looking to de-escalate the conflict and remove Bashar al-Assad's abilities to launch chemical weapons attacks in the future.
That's why I am asking right now all parties to reconsider the situation, mainly Russians and the Syrian government, to reconsider negotiation, to reconsider talking to other Syrians all over the world, to consider that they can deal with all Syrians, not only those in Damascus, but those who fled. We, all Syrians, want peace, want to rediscuss the situation, want to rebuild our country, and not accepting international resolutions, not accepting United Nations intervention, not accepting Security Council resolutions would lead to such unfortunate answers. I do believe that this answer could be avoided if Russians and Syrian government answered differently. Humanitarian actors like our organizations are awaiting for a coherent and more rational answer from all parties to settle down this war and not to put oil on the fire once again.
And Mr. Shama, how pragmatic is that possibility? If Russia and Damascus are supposed to change their perspective, is that something that the people on the ground suffering these attacks, the civilians caught in the crossfire, can really count on?
We hope that all the military solution would stop. We think that all military operations in the air and on the ground in Syria must stop, and all parties come back to a real negotiation table, a real opening to all what had been decided, resolutions of Security Council, efforts from the Mistura's office. All these efforts, cumulative efforts, can lead Syrians to a new day, not war. Unfortunately, we still dealing through a real war mentality, and it's not leading to peace anymore. And we as humanitarian organizations can't work under these conditions.
So one final question for you, Mr. Shama. From your professional perspective, the fallout, the consequences, Russia said there would be consequences to these coordinated strikes. What do you think that means for the civilians on the ground in Syria?
Actually, we have these consequences. During the night, after these strikes, American and allies strikes, We do have strikes from Russians and Syrian government on the region of Idlib and northern of Hama. So Syrian civilians, Syrian IDPs, internally displaced, thousands, hundreds of thousands of them are under fire right now because of this situation. We are really calling all parties to settle down this conflict, this armed conflict, and try once again to see what we can do through negotiations, rational negotiations, including all Syrians, not part of them, in giving back going back to all resolutions which have been voted through the Security Council and United Nations resolutions.
Mr. Shama, thank you so much for your time today and speaking to France 24. Tawfiq Shama, Secretary General and spokesperson for the UOSSM.